welcome to another edition of 2 Minute Tuesday, and today we've got something fun. This is E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof Batch 13. This is the 2024 release, although basically in Washington it released in 2025. Let's talk a little bit about this, and then we'll get into all the notes in 2 minutes or less. E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof, as you can obviously tell. Hello, my name is Bentley, and I'm a tater. It's something that I'm a big fan of. I've loved it ever since I had my first one, and I kind of slowly started collecting them all the way back. So I have batches 3 and now all the way through 13. We recently did a 3 through 12 tasting on the Baker Drinks channel, so if you're curious, I'll leave a link down to that below from their live stream if you want to kind of get notes on all the other ones in a very casual format. But in this case, let's get this bad boy open. Plastic. I like to take a little time and actually try to make my tack strip kind of clean, but I don't use a knife. I'm not that. Ready? Ooh, good pop. Now our Baker Drinks. I'm going to use a Baker Drinks Glen. We get this poured, let it rest a little bit. A little extra background on the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof while we let our pour rest before we go through a tasting. E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof is, as the name implies, bottled at barrel proof. They do some hand selecting of the barrels. It's released once a year, so every year you have a batch. Some of the easiest ways to tell is typically by proof. However, there have been 2 occasions in which the proof has been the same across 2 batches. Batch 3 and Batch 11 are both 129.0, and then in our case, this brand new Batch 13 is 127.3 proof, which is the same proof as Batch 10. And if you do deal with that, then what you really want to do, usually right here between these labels, you're just going to rotate. Right down here at the bottom, there's a laser code. And you're going to look for, in the case of everything after, I think it's Batch 6, it'll be an L, and then the first 2 numbers will tell you the year. So in this case, it starts L24. Batch 12, L23, 11, L22, etc., etc., etc. Some of the oldest batches, 1 through I believe it's 5, start with a B. So there is a little difference, but they will still have those first 2 numbers will tell you the year it was released. So that's one of the ways that you can tell if you're staring at a bottle, maybe you're at somewhere and they have multiple bottles and you're not really sure whether it's a batch 10, a batch 13, a batch 11, a batch 3, look at the laser code. That's going to tell you everything you need to know. Now, one of the interesting things with E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof is each batch is a little different. The most coveted batch, typically the one that is considered the best, the GOAT, whatever you want to call it, is usually batch 9. And that one is a really phenomenal batch, but every one of them is good. So if you get an opportunity to get one, especially if it's at a price that you deem reasonable, I know that the secondary market on these can get kind of high. In Washington, they're about $300 on the secondary market, but the MSRP is somewhere closer to like $120 after taxes in Washington. It's almost impossible to find them at MSRP, but in my case, I think I paid $200 for mine, and I was fine with that because this is, again, one of my favorite things. It's probably my favorite thing to chase every year to get at least one bottle of, and yeah, I'm willing to pay for it because, as you can see, I take my time enjoying them. All of these are open, and there's just some empty tubes for fun displays, but yeah, I take my time, I enjoy them, I've let them sample out to a bunch of friends, and usually when I have a fresh one, I take it to a bottle share, and we all enjoy it a little bit. Let's actually get into the real thing. Let's start with our notes. So right away, what I will say is, compared to the previous batch, Batch 12, there's a lot less ethanol in the nose, which is really good. Yeah, okay, let's talk nose. Some E.H. Taylors are really, really robust. This one, I feel, is a little more subtle. Not subdued, not weak, but more like, instead of a big in-your-face note or two, there's kind of this really soft strawberry thing going on, which normally is not what I get out of most E.H. Taylor Barrel Proofs. I kind of dig it. It has this really nice lighter thing. There's definitely oak presence. There's definitely a kind of a sweetness. I would relate it closer to kind of like caramel, so kind of think of like a little caramel on your strawberries. As I get into it a little deeper, there definitely is a little bit of almost like kind of a shortbready thing going on, a butteriness that I would relate to like a shortbread cookie as opposed to maybe something else. Like we had kind of buttered popcorn last week with Remus, but I would give this kind of like a strawberry shortbread or strawberry shortcake kind of thing going on. Definitely a little bit of oak, that oak sweetness, kind of caramel brown sugary thing going on. Very, very nice. Let's talk tasting. Man, these These never disappoint. I'm just going to put this out there. Here's the thing that I have to say about this right off the kick. Even though this is 127.3 proof, it doesn't punch you like it is. And it's one thing that I think a lot of E.H. Taylors do is they're actually a little more subdued on their ethanol-y, that upfront punch, that burn, whatever you want to call it, Kentucky hug, than say a Stag. But man, this is way more mellow, which is dangerous because this makes this really crushable. Definitely a lot of the strawberry and that kind of like buttery shortbread thing is coming through, which I love. The oak, and as you get into the finish, there's that like barrel spice, the kind of pepperiness that gives you a little bit of the spices. What I would deem a pepper as opposed to more like other spices to me, but I love that comes from the barrel char. This is just really good. I don't know, man. E.H. Taylor never steers me wrong. Yeah, I might need more. Seriously, compared to some of the other batches, this has a more subdued, lighter kind of fruitiness to it. Some of them have really big in-your-face fruity flavors. Others are a little bit more like darker sugary notes. This is kind of light and relaxed and chill on the palate. I love it a lot. It's got a really nice finish. It really hangs in there pretty long. I would say at least a minute. It's really, really good. I mean, color, we've drank some, but bam. No, nice, pretty typical color out of a Buffalo Trace. The viscosity, it really hangs on in the mouth. You can feel it coat pretty well. It's got some great legs. I know that's a little hard to see, but it's there. Everything you'd want. Let me get to an overall score on this thing. Overall score, 89. Now, I'm a little biased. I'm an absolute sucker for E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. But what I will say is that this being that little more subdued, especially on its ethanol, it's really nice. Now, if you want a kind of like big in-your-face monster, you're more likely to turn towards something like the Stag profile, I think, than E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. I feel like E.H. Taylor is naturally kind of like not as in your face. Like sometimes you have phenomenal notes out of it, don't get me wrong. But this right here is a damn good whiskey. And I think if you were able to find it for SRP, you should just buy it. Unless you're one of the people who does not like E.H. Taylor. There are a few of you out there, I know. But for me, like, if I found this at SRP, I'd buy every bottle they'd let me do so. Just because this is probably one of my favorite whiskeys. And if of recent note, I would say this batch is probably in my top 5 of the E.H. Taylors. To me, 9 is the best, followed very, very shortly by batch 5. And then 11 and 12 kind of do this with each other, just because I feel like they're both really, really good. 11's a bit more fruity. 12's kind of a special monster. It's really close to the 9 profile, but punches just a touch harder, and has a little less balance than the 9, which is why it's not quite as amazing. But this, it's a little fruity. It's wonderful. It's got a touch of like kind of leather and stuff going on, and because it's not just like overbearing on the palate, you could crush this pretty easy. Phenomenal whiskey. That's your 2-Minute Tuesday for E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof Batch 13. If you've enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you give it a like and consider leaving a comment down below. Have you had an E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof? Do you have a favorite? Have you never had E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof? Have you never had any E.H. Taylor? I want to hear from you down in the comments down below. Let me know your experience. I love interacting with you folks, and that's one of my favorite parts about doing this whole YouTube thing, is interacting with people who are watching and getting their feedback and their ideas on any of the things I'm trying. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. We'll do 2-Minute Tuesday, hopefully every week, where we'll review one whiskey in 2 minutes or less with all the tasting notes, so you can get past all the BS, the hemming and hawing, spending too much time sniffing and all that kind of stuff, and get straight to the notes. Get it out of your way nice and quick. Next week, we'll be doing something else that's pretty special in the finished whiskey category, that from a friend of mine who I trust very much is his whiskey of the year. So with that being said, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.